All right, let's dive into one of literature's biggest, most provocative questions. We're talking about William Shakespeare and what some people might call the art of the stolen plot.
I mean, it's a huge question, right? It almost feels wrong to even ask it. Was the greatest writer in the English language, well, unoriginal? Let's get into it.
Okay, calling it a scandal might be a little dramatic, I'll admit. But it gets right to the heart of what we think makes a story great. And as you're about to see, the real story here is way more interesting than a simple yes or no.
So let's just get right to it. The short answer? Shakespeare did not invent most of his plots. Not even close. He was kind of like the ultimate remix artist of his day, taking existing stories and turning them into absolute masterpieces.
So you're probably thinking, okay, where's the proof? Well, the crazy thing is it's not hidden at all. The evidence is right there in plain sight. Let's follow the paper trail for a few of his most famous plays. Let's start with probably the most famous love story ever told, Romeo and Juliet. Well, turns out, Shakespeare didn't just dream up these star-crossed lovers. Nope. The story actually started out in Italian literature and then made its way to England in a long poem by a guy named Arthur Brooke. That poem was Shakespeare's direct source. And it's not just the love stories. It's the same deal with his big, epic historical dramas. For plays like Julius Caesar and Antony and Cleopatra, he basically used an English translation of the Greek historian Plutarch's biographies as his playbook, lifting events and sometimes even dialogue right from the page. And get this, even Hamlet, the big one, wasn't totally original. The core story of a prince avenging his father goes all the way back to a medieval Scandinavian legend. And a lot of scholars believe there was an earlier, now lost play about Hamlet. They call it the Hamlet, that Shakespeare almost certainly saw and decided, you know what, I can make this better. And that right there, that brings us to the most important point in all of this. He didn't just copy the plots, he transformed them. And that's where the real magic happens. So you might be wondering, wait a minute, why didn't he get called out for plagiarism? To get that, we have to throw out our modern ideas about creativity and look at how things worked back in the Renaissance. It was a whole different ballgame.
See, back then, the word originality meant something completely different. It had nothing to do with making up a totally new plot. Everyone was working with the same pool of stories. Originality was all about the execution. How amazing was your poetry? How deep were your characters? It was about how you told the story.
And here's the kicker. Everybody was doing it. Seriously, playwrights were constantly pulling from old myths, legends, history books, you name it. This wasn't cheating. This was just how you wrote a play. Shakespeare wasn't the exception. He was just the best one doing it.
Okay, so if he wasn't the plot guy, what exactly did he do that made him, well, Shakespeare? This is where we get to the real, undeniable spark of genius.
And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If you take away the plots, what's left? The answer? Pretty much everything that actually matters.
For starters, he invented people. I mean, really think about it. We don't just remember what happened in these plays. We remember Hamlet's inner turmoil, Lady Macbeth's ambition, King Lear's heartbreak. These complex, unforgettable characters are his true creations. He also basically invented a huge chunk of the English language we speak today. The old stories didn't have these phrases. He cooked them up himself. So every time you say you need to break the ice,
or you're complaining about being on a wild goose chase,
or you describe your kindest friend as having a heart of gold, yep, you're quoting Shakespeare. He wasn't just using our language, he was building it. And this might be his single biggest game changer. You see, the earlier stories, they were all about the plot, about what happens next. Shakespeare flipped the script entirely. He made his plays about why things happen. He gave us that peek inside their heads, the soliloquy, letting us hear their private thoughts. He took flat archetypes and made them messy, complicated, and deeply human. All right, so let's bring it all home. What's the final verdict on this so-called scandal? To answer that, we really just have to redefine what we think genius looks like. This was his formula for genius. It's really that simple and that brilliant. He'd find a story people already knew, then he'd fill it with these incredibly real characters. He'd inject a level of psychological depth nobody had ever seen before. And by doing that, he turned old, simple stories into timeless art. So, did Shakespeare steal his plots? Look, by today's rules, maybe you could make a case for it, but that's missing the point. He did something so much bigger.
Maybe real genius isn't always about inventing something from nothing. Maybe it's about seeing the potential in what's already there and transforming it into something that lasts forever.